Thought I heard him.
Yeah. What's going on, Awesemo fam? I'm Eric Lindquist. This is the MLB Live Before Lock show. We're going to go game by game here through all the good stuff on the early slate. We're going to cover the 7-game DK slate. We're going to cover the 3-game early slate on Fanduel, and we're going to even throw in some bonus coverage on that 6-gamer for the afternoon slate. We've got 2 games that are on the back end there, in the Mets and the Phillies, and the Cardinals at Pittsburgh. We're going to throw those in at the very end. But anywho, I am sitting here. I'm just sitting sidecar. I've got my main attraction over here, Terry McBride at Digital B21 on the Twitter sphere. Terry, how you doing, my dude?
Man, me and the word attraction rarely collide in the same sentence these days, but
I think so. I'm okay with that.
Oh, all right. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. It's nice to hear on a Saturday, early afternoon, morning on this weird slate that we got broken up in like 4 different ways to talk through. So yeah, it's been fun wrestling this thing into my sheet so we can talk about it. But yeah, happy to be here with you and think it's going to be an interesting one at least.
Yeah, a little Derby prequel, if you will. Are you partaking in any of the horse streets this week?
Yeah, I'll have to get into something for the actual Derby. I haven't been throwing anything in through the week. I'm like with majors in golf. I'm a fish for the for the big races and stuff. I'll throw in a bunch of tickets and bet all the superfectas and all the nonsense that never is going to come through in a million years. But it's an enjoyable day. What about you? Are you into it?
Yeah, I'm just going to tail Ben Rasa so that if we do the Wednesday PGA Live Before Lock, I can just blame him for losing money. So it actually works out both ways, that there's no pressure whatsoever. But check out the video he and Josh Engelman did. They did a great job of breaking down that race number 12. That's going to be your big Kentucky Derby race going into that. Got a couple picks going there, doing some wild cards. These exotic cards, man, these are fun times. I'm not much of a horse bettor, but this is the one day where I think everybody becomes a professional sports bettor when it comes to the horses. But anywho, get down to that bottom bar, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as we're just getting started, and hit that notification bell so you know when this and all the other content at Awesemo is going live. You ready to get started? We'll go from the top.
Sounds like a plan.
Let's do it. So first game right off the bat, we got the Marlins going up against Washington here. We have, let's see. Well, there it is. Okay, it's just slowing down a little bit. Patrick Corbin sitting on the top. It's not the Patrick Corbin of old here of late. We've seen him get knocked around. We've seen him have a great outing against St. Louis earlier in the year. You just kind of never know what you're going to get. It's a box of chocolates. And then Paul Campbell here. Break down a little bit of the pitching going on here for me today.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with Corbin. He's just not been himself. I'm a little concerned. We saw it somewhat last year, 65 innings, only a 20.3% strikeout rate. Was it a 4.13 xFIP, a 1.57 whip through that sample? And it's kind of continued this year, 16 innings, only 17.1% strikeouts, 12.2% walks. This is a tiny, tiny sample, but he's given up a lot, and it's just been ugly. His slider has kind of left him. He's just had no out pitch. That's why he's priced at 6,400 on the Draftkings slate, which is, if you told me, Patrick Corbin at 6,400 in any other circumstances, taking that out of the equation these last 71 innings, or 81 innings rather, that's a home run spot. It's just tough with how he's been pitching. But going up against this Marlins team, especially on that short Fanduel slate with only 6 options, it's a 3-gamer for Fanduel at 1 o'clock. He's the best pitcher that we've got to work with there. So going up against a weak Marlins lineup that is against lefties so far this season, Marlins are on the board here somewhere, presumably, because this is the entire league. They're dead in the middle, 24.6% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching, but they're hitting for a little power. 188 team ISO is decent so far this year with power outage across the league, producing runs 12% better than average. So it's not like the Marlins are totally dead in the water and targetable with a struggling Patrick Corbin as a lefty here. It's a tough spot. I would not be shocked if Patrick Corbin came out and gave us a nice, 30 some odd point start on Fanduel, whatever that equates to in DK scoring. It's just a little bit more dicey than it normally would be. With Campbell on the other side, you're getting a kid who's been pitching out of the pen. This is, I think, his first ever career start.
Yep.
So he's, I don't think he's going to be too stretched out. He's been, I think he maxed out at 3 innings so far this year. Just looking at him through the minors, he capped out in high A ball with like a 20% strikeout rate, which is not good for translating to major leagues. He's had 40 to 45 grade stuff in traditional scouting for all across all of his pitches. I just don't see it for this kid right now. So, maybe he develops into something. He was a mid-grade prospect, but I think I'm throwing Nationals bats at him more than anything here. He's cheap. If you wanted to go to him, 4,700 on the DK slate is obviously super cheap for an SB2. I just don't know how much length we're going to get out of him. I would expect, maybe 3 innings.
Yeah, so looking up and down these lineups as well. I mean, Washington's been pretty chalky of late. Guys like Schwarber, Hernandez has been hitting fantastically well here too. Trey Turner, you can always throw into the middle of it. Kind of what are you looking to do with some of the bats from this game?
Yeah, I mean, I love getting to Trey Turner. You get a power and speed combo guy off the top of the lineup. 2 years ago, 19 home runs, 35 stolen bases, and 569 plate appearances. Don't really need to sell Trey Turner to anybody, but 12 home runs, 12 steals, and 259 plate appearances last year. He's excellent. He gets on base. He's the engine of that offense, makes things happen. So I'll take Turner shares as a one-off. I'll take him at the top of stacks. He's probably going to be pretty owned. Looks like about 35% on the DK slate. Don't have a ownership mark on him for that short Fanduel slate, but I imagine he's going to be up there as well. But if you start putting him together, nobody else on this team is owned over 10% on DK. So if you start putting him together with some of the options, like you mentioned, Schwarber, definitely a decent power option off the from the left side of the plate. Josh Bell, same thing, hitting from both sides of the plate. I can even go all the way down to Starlin Castro hitting 6th, even in a righty-righty. Castro's got some pop. He's an underrated player. 3,600 helps out on the salary of 2,400 on FanDuel. So there's a lot of different ways to put this Nationals offense together that I think we can get into for sure.
So on this DraftKings slate as well, Trey Turner, the highest owned batter, it looks like, on the entire slate. Would you be looking at playing him as a one-off? Is he just going to be included kind of in some of your stacks? I guess a 7-gamer gives you a little bit more flexibility, but specifically over on FanDuel, where he's probably going to see even more ownership than that on just 3 games on that very early slate. What are you looking to do specifically with a batter that's that popular?
Yeah, so if he's going to be owned that much, and you're right, he probably will be up. We've got him at like 35 for the bigger slate. So yeah, on this small slate, he's going to be ridiculously owned. So that does make him tough to use as a one-off there. On a 3-game slate, though, sometimes you do have to just swallow that chalk. At a position like shortstop, I think out of these 3 games, you could argue Glaber for sure, but Glaber's been struggling. He's definitely cheaper. But just looking at the available shortstops, he's the only real, top-end shortstop, unless we're counting Glaber in there. You can argue Jorge Polanco with the same thing, but Polanco's been struggling longer than Glaber has. So I think just everybody's going to be going there. But I think it's maybe one of those spots where it just kind of makes sense if you're building your lineups that way and your shortstop isn't part of your stack. He's the best shortstop available to just kind of plug and play as a one-off. I think you're going to have the salary to do it. So I wouldn't really sweat it too much because I think you're just getting enough upside out of it at the position. But it probably makes sense for the large portion of your shortstop shares to use the shortstop that comes with your stacks instead of one-offing shortstop. Like I would probably just look to one-off somewhere else since he's so highly owned.
Love it. Favorite bat from Miami if you're looking to kind of like one-off. Chisholm's been out of the lineup there. They've been outperformed expectations, I would for sure say, based on a lot of the factors. But up and down that lineup, I don't know if I'm necessarily looking to stack with anybody, but Duvall we know can hit for some power up against a lefty, not so bad. Garrett Cooper, don't mind that either. But anybody that you're really looking at, Lewis Brinson, if you really need 2.2K over on DraftKings, why not him?
Yeah, that's hitting 5th in the lineup. You can get to that. $2,200 is $2,200. So that's not bad. Kid doesn't have the worst profile in the world either. He's been kind of underperforming expectations to this point in his major league career for sure. But there is pedigree in that bat. But yeah, my answer is definitely Adam Duvall. I love that player. I love his power upside on any slate, righties, lefties. It doesn't really matter. Hitting cleanup, only 3,800 on DK, 27 on FanDuel is just way too low. So really like that. He's my highest rated power option for Miami in my home run model today. So it would be Duvall.
Oh man, yeah. If you get bad Corbin today too, this could get really, really wonky on him, I suppose. Maybe not the worst stack option. I know they have an implied total under 4, but definitely looks pretty good to me. Anything else for this game, and keep it moving along?
Yeah, just on that note, it could be somewhat sneaky on stacking some Marlins, particularly on the DK slate. Just looking at that ownership, like you said, Brinson is 2.8% owned at that $2,200 price tag. There's a good one-off. Just pop a little one-off in your outfield for $2,200 and take the home run upside. But yeah, there are some ownership holes in that lineup, so you can thread that stack together pretty well and be at least decently leveraged.
Yeah, play Lance Lynn, play Urquidy and party or something like that. I don't know if you're going to go crazy expensive there. But anyway, moving ourselves along, Spencer Turnbull going up against the New York Yankees. The New York Yankees, we were talking a little bit before the show how frustrating it is. They're chalk all week. I thought they would be even chalkier than they ended up being. Aaron Judge comes back and just goes, yeah. It's just crazy. Oh, twice, by the way, just to for good measure, just to throw it in there. But Detroit plus 196, New York Yankees, what can you say? Like they have power up and down the lineup constantly. Tyon, let's talk a little bit about the pitching though. But Spencer Turnbull been pretty decent here to start. Just the 2 starts so far on the 21st and the 26th. Got up to 81 pitches his last game. Coming in probably really low owned here on this side. Yep, that he definitely is. Is there any interest? I'm looking at the weather here too. Looks like the wind's blowing out to right. Fairly cool day, under 60 degrees right now, but afternoon game for sure. Yankees, what can you say? Spencer Turnbull, any interest there? Jameson Taillon, any interest there?
Not much. I get a better projection on Taillon for 7,000 on Fanduel. I would maybe take some shots. 7,700 on DK. I like him better than Spencer Turnbull in this matchup. It's just a significantly better matchup taking on the Tigers rather than taking on the Yankees for one thing. So that makes that call kind of easy between the two. But I don't know how much I'm going to either one in general. I don't think Taillon's all the way back. His stuff is there, but he's just not really putting it together so far. So 3.78 xFIP is nice. 28.4% strikeout rate is right there. That's where you want him to be. It hasn't looked right, I guess, in watching him so far. So I'm a little concerned just about where it is. More on the eyeball test, I guess, than the numbers just so far. But Detroit is a spectacular matchup for any righty pitcher. They're second worst in the league, 28.8% strikeout rate, 19% worse at creating runs so far this year. Hitting for a little pop, 24 home runs against righty pitchers. So maybe they take him deep, pop one into the right field seats. And to your point, on a windy day in particular, even on a day without wind, you see pop-ups that are not home runs in any other stadium in the league leave the park there in right field. So on a day where the wind's blowing out, yeah, those could start carrying. Guys do not need to hit the ball very hard here. Turnbull on the other side, giving up a ton of hard contact. He's sitting 13th in barrel rate, 13th percentile. He's sitting 39th percentile in hard hit rate. He's sitting 3rd percentile in max exit velocity, 17th in average exit velocity. So he's danced around it, but he's getting hit hard. That would be my concern with Spencer Turnbull and a Yankees lineup that hits everything hard. No Giancarlo Stanton in here, who's hit, I think 5 of the 6 hardest baseballs in the league this year have been hit by Giancarlo Stanton. But you do get Aaron Judge, you do get Gleyber Torres in here, you do get Gary Sanchez, who, when he makes contact, still obliterates the baseball with hard contact. It's just that he rarely makes contact with it. DJ LeMahieu up top. I hate Rougned Odor, but he's batting 3rd, so you got to draft him. Also, he's a lefty bat. So
wait, why do you hate him? Hasn't he been pretty darn good so far this season out of the 9 hole?
I think that's
as a person.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
I don't believe in his bat, right? There's power upside there, but he's been one of the worst hitters in the league over the last couple of years. He seems, I don't know. I don't want to say like he's not a Yankee because that sounds really like just jerky and everything, but I don't know. I don't know that he fits in. I don't know that I want him on the team necessarily. Like there's better lefty bats. I've been craving a lefty bat on this team. Don't get me wrong. I just think there were better options. So I don't hate him personally, but I don't love the fact that he's sitting 3rd for my New York Yankees today. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, he's Jose Bautista's daddy. So there is that. There's no question there. I guess that's the reason that I like him. That was just a fun altercation. In general, good times. But I understand it. Mike Ford there in the 5 hole, not so bad either. Is there anybody on Detroit that you kind of, I guess for me, like on a 7-gamer, I'm playing a little bit more on DraftKings. I know you're kind of more of the blue site guy. I always steal that from you, by the way, on shows. You should trademark that. But the blue site, is there anybody specifically, because you're going to probably have exposure, everybody there. Is there somebody on Detroit that really kind of stands out? Maybe with the wind blowing out to right, short porch to right, going up against a righty, maybe a guy like Badu, who's just apparently Jesus Christ with a bat.
Yeah, I could get to some Badu. I would work him into stacks for sure. He's not expensive on FanDuel at 2,900. So if you wanted to work him in to certain spots as an outfield one-off, I'm fine with that. I like some of the hitters ahead of him as well. I mean, Miggy's Miggy. He's an ancient version of Miggy, but he's still got some pop in that bat. So I don't mind getting to him for 2,500. I don't mind getting to Jonathan Scope for 2,400. There's a lot of power there. Even righty-righty, he's pretty good. and he can target those short right field seats the same, just going the other way. So those two are the top of my home run model for the Tigers here, Cabrera and Scope. I can get to some Candelario. So if you wanted to go 3 through 6 with those guys, I wouldn't mind it as a little stack there. Or if you wanted to go to the top of the lineup and working, I would probably do an either or between Robbie Grossman and Willie Castro in stacks. I don't know that I want both of them at the top of the stack there. I would probably go one or the other and then the power bats through the middle.
I love it. As you can see there, we had Kris behind the wall helping us out there, showing us all the goodies that we have for free going on at Awesemo today. We've got the ownership projections that are getting fired up there. So those are free today. If you check out the MLB ownership projections, also we have the NBA big board if you want to check that out. Also, if you're in the premium Slack right now, I mean, that premium sports betting is going to be off the hook leading up here to the lock of the horse races. You've got multiple races. It's not just the one run for the roses. It is multiple things going on the front end of that. So get in that premium Slack, go chat with some of the experts, specifically Ben, go bug him, ask him what he's doing, because he tends to win this stuff more than not, as long as he's not betting lacrosse today, because apparently that's become his new thing. And he's very, very good at it, but he'll help us all out, make some money today. So check out the premium Slack here as well. Let's keep it moving along here. We got a lot to get to. Oh, what was that?
Right. So I was going to say, I love the ridiculous number of niches that we cover. We have a lacrosse betting expert now.
We do. Ben Rasa is the master of all things. He's the doctor of sports betting. He's the doctor prop bet tool guy now on the tip-off show. He wears many hats over here at Awesemo, but today he is the best horse betting expert you will find, period. Just even hearing him on that one video talk about all the ins and outs, it made my head hurt a little bit, but as long as he makes me money, I don't really care. But now we're going to my team. We're throwing it up. Kansas City at Minnesota. We've got a really good pitching matchup for the most. Well, okay, one side of it right now. Danny Duffy's been pitching really, really well. It's very strange to see over 20 DraftKings points all 4 outings so far this season. He has spiked up to 100 pitches, which was really interesting to see here too. A Minnesota Twins team that's really kind of, I wouldn't say feast or famine, but you can definitely get Ks and play both sides of this. Talk to me a little bit about Danny Duffy today.
Yeah, Duffy's been pitching really, really well. He's come through and he's always been a good pitcher, a guy who I think we always expected more from and never quite got to that next level. He's always been, around league average-ish in terms of strikeout rate, in terms of his xFIP has gone up over the last couple of years. His whip has always been a little bit bumpy. This year, he's kind of put it all together so far. 29.7% strikeout rate in his 23 innings, only a 6.6% walk rate, leading to a 104 whip. The ERA is 0.39. We don't really care about ERA. We care about the actual number, the fielding independent pitching, and the expected fielding independent xFIP, which is 3.47. So under the covers, it's not quite as spectacular as it looks if you're just going by the back of the baseball card ERA stat. But he's been pitching very, very well. He's taking on a Twins lineup that has a habit of obliterating left-handed pitching. I'm a little concerned about that. That would be the really one trip up for him in terms of this matchup. I do think he's probably the best current pitcher right now that we've got to work with on this slate in terms of current year, how he's put everything together. We talked about Patrick Corbin struggling. I think Pat Corbin is the best pitcher on this slate in general in terms of what he's done for his career, but Duffy's the guy pitching the best right now. It's a tough price to pay though. 10-5 on Fanduel for Danny Duffy is just, even just on name brand, it's just a little tough to make that click. But I think it makes some sense. Tough matchup against the Twins, so I'm a little skeptical, but I think we'd have to go there more often than not. Twins, 25.2% strikeout rate so far this year as a team against lefties, creating runs 7% better than average. Interestingly, the power's been out a little bit. Only 8 home runs so far against lefties, a 1.50 ISO. So a little bit of a power outage for the Twins, but the pedigree and the history against left-handed pitching is immense. So, I mean, Nelson Cruz could hit 3 home runs on his own today and just ruin Danny Duffy's day. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's on the table. So I'm a little worried about Duffy, but I think we're going there.
I'd be okay with it, just throwing it out there. But Matt Shoemaker on the other side, 6.41 Ks per 9 so far this season. Not a big strikeout guy. I never really saw a ton of it there with the Angels either. Just kind of a 5.49 ERA, xFIP 5.1. Talk to me about Matt Shoemaker too, because I think Kansas City definitely makes for a decent stack today too.
Yeah, KC is a team I've enjoyed targeting through the beginning of the year. I just really like the dynamics of how that lineup comes together. They've got a few guys with multi-position eligibility, which is nice. They're never really expensive. The top end of the lineup is actually getting a little bit more aggressive in the pricing from Fanduel today, and they're up there a little bit in DK. But they get cheap pretty quickly once you get down to Jorge Soler batting cleanup for 3,900 on DK is great. Carlos Santana at 4,800 I think is a pretty good price, and the FanDuel prices are more fair. So I can go to that stack. I don't think much of the Cobbler as a pitcher here. 16.1% strikeout rate so far this year. You mentioned the 5.1 xFIP, putting guys on base. Just looking at StatCast, 21st percentile in barrels, that's not good. 11th percentile strikeout rate, not good. 30th percentile max exit velo, 40th in average exit velo, just getting hit hard. XERA 13th percentile, just a lot of red flags here. So I think there's a good power spot here for KC. And I think even if they're not hitting them for power, I think they're going to have enough base runners and enough opportunity to generate some offense just with the way that this team tends to circle the base pass with base hits and do their thing. So I would be much more firmly on the Royal stack side of that specific matchup.
I'm just throwing this out there. I think KC does make for a really good bet on the money line today. Just throwing it out there as somebody who's watched way too much Twins baseball in my lifetime. I'm not against cheering against my team when money's involved. So throwing that out there as well. As you said, Minnesota up and down the lineup constantly. Just so much power. My Lord and Savior Byron Buxton, 2.5 wins above replacement on the season, leading the entire majors, tied with Trout, 2 wins above replacement, batting tool, top 5 in defensive. I'm just making ridiculous catches constantly. But up and down that lineup, Buxton, Nelson Cruz. Now you've got Alex Kirilloff, who just decided to go yard twice last night. Nice to see him. I mean, his but I mean, it was just ridiculous. His expected power was just his expected ISO, was off the charts. It hadn't necessarily matched up with his production yet. It matched up yesterday, but now going up against a lefty, we'll kind of see what he's got there up and down. Garlic, don't really like seeing that in the middle of the lineup, but so be it. Talk to me a little bit about the Twins stack.
Yeah, your guy Byron Buxton, right? Byron Buxton, 4,500 on the FanDuel slate. Mike Trout on the evening slate, 4,500. Mike Trout and Byron Buxton, same player now. How about that? So I love Buxton. We were talking about it before the show. I think he's an excellent player. He came into the league with that super high-end prospect, and it took him a little time to get there. We saw flashes of it. We saw the defense was always there, so it was easy to keep him in the lineup when he was healthy. I think he's finally truly arrived, and he is just delivering. So, yeah, I love getting to him at the top of the lineup, leading off today in front of Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz. I can roster Jorge Polanco. I mentioned him earlier in the shortstop conversation. He's got upside. He's got upside on any slate. Whether he's hitting or not, I think there's enough there. And hitting fourth in that lineup for the price, for the ownership, I mean, 5,200 is a lot to pay for him, but you're getting him at 0.5% ownership in a spot where people are going to be rostering the opposing pitcher, Danny Duffy. I think that's an interesting spot. I don't love Garlic in the middle of the lineup either there, but I think getting to Mitch Garver where you need to roster a catcher makes some sense, and even as a contrarian play on FanDuel, put him in one of the corner spots. And then Kirilloff. I love the fact that FanDuel did not raise his price. He's still the dead minimum on FanDuel, $2,000. So roster the hell out of Alex Kirilloff. Maybe you get another double dark day. Maybe FanDuel eventually decides to raise the price on one of the top prospects in the league, which would be smart. You get him at first base and outfield on DK, 2,500. Getting ownership on DK though, but still very, very slate relevant.
Yeah, we definitely needed another power hitter. That's for sure. 2,500 over on Draftkings still. As you can see there, Chris pulled it up. He's coming in as the highest owned piece. I think that just makes sense as somebody who's cheap over on the Draftkings slate as well. Favorite bat from the Minnesota Twins lineup? Just putting you on the spot. I was going to say we haven't done a show. We haven't done a show for a while, so I got to put you on the spot a little bit more.
Yeah, try and trip me up as much as possible. It's I mean, how do you not say Nelson Cruz to that against a lefty, right? That's kind of the obvious easy answer. Yep. Leading my home run board there. But I'll throw a little Josh Donaldson into that too. Why not? Big righty bat, not as owned as Cruz, a little bit less expensive. So if you wanted to make a pivot, if Nelson was a little too expensive, you need to save a little bit of money. I don't mind plugging in a 2-hitting Josh Donaldson there against the lefty.
Yeah, I will be playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 of the Twins. So of course it's going to be Garlic, Simmons, and Araz who just go completely yard today. I will let it be known too. Probably one of the most irrationally warm spots that you could imagine for Minnesota. 1st of May, it's 84 degrees out there, pretty humid, looking like a really good spot for hitters, wind blowing out. So if the Twins can get a hold of a couple on Duffy, yeah, that would be fantastic. I think it works both ways too. I think KC, just a really good hitting environment here today compared to what you would expect for May 1st. Having been from the area, I can't remember a May 1st where you would be sweating in the stands out there at Target Field. So anywho, we can move ourselves along here. We've got next up Cleveland and the Chicago White Sox. Lance Lynn, 9,800 coming off of a week where he ended up missing, I guess he's missed 2 weeks now total. Be 2 starts he would have missed. He had a little bit of a back issue, 10-day IL over there. But so far, under a 1 ERA, 0.92 whip. Looking really, really good for the most part, facing Tristan McKenzie, but I don't know how much interest I would have going that direction. But talk to me a little bit about Lance Lynn, who is garnering quite a bit of ownership.
Yeah, I really like Lance Lynn, like him coming into the season. I love the price tag on DK. It's just 9,800, 11.5 on the Fanduel slate, which now we're switching into the afternoon Fanduel slate. So that's keeping his ownership down on Fanduel, only about 7.9% on the early projections here. It'll probably come up because he's Lance Lynn, but I think it's a decent spot. The Indians aren't a great strikeout matchup in general, but I think he's a good enough pitcher that he's going to kind of take the top off of what is more of a base hit based offense right now. So I don't really worry about that. And actually their strikeout rate's a little higher than I was expecting. 25.7% strikeout rate so far this season against righties. So that puts them 10th in the league, or 10th worst in the league rather.
10th worst, yeah.
Creating runs 15% worse than average. So it's definitely a good spot to target for Lynn. He's talked a lot about the changes that he made that really brought him back to life as a pitcher when he was in Texas. They kind of got him away from throwing the sinker and got him back into throwing his four-seamer up in the zone. And we saw the strikeout rate jump 2 years ago. It was 208 innings, 28.1%. Last year, it was back down to 25.9, but so far this year, 35.1 in his 19 innings. Only walked 2.6% of hitters. 2.31 xFIP. He's pitching spectacularly well when he's healthy, when he's on the mound. So, and he's an innings eater. He's a horse. He wants to be out on the mound. He's one of those guys that'll argue with you when you go out to get him. So I love getting to Lance Lynn. He's one of the better bets for the quality start bonus, one of the better bets to just chew up a bunch of innings for you. So definitely can get to some Lance Lynn here. On the other side, Tristan McKenzie, not projecting well. I don't like the idea of throwing him up against this White Sox lineup right now. He's a very high-end kid. They love his stuff. He's electric when he's on. 31.1% strikeout rate so far this year. A little bit ugly on the walk rate, though. 18.9% walk rate in his 16 innings. So he's got to clean that up. He's got some development work to do. He's a really interesting prospect, though. Really skinny kid. If you've seen him, he's got these if you see on his baseball card, he's just got, there's one where he's throwing the ball. I know this from Topps NFTs now. And his arm, he looks like a skeleton. And his nickname is Dr. Sticks, which I think is related to that, I would imagine. But yeah, I don't think this is the slate where we're rolling him. 6,900 on FanDuel. If you wanted to throw a couple shares as a total tournament dart throw, I don't completely hate it because he does have that high end upside, does have some strikeout upside. For $8,000 on DK, I think we can leave him alone though.
Okay. I'm looking right now. I just pulled up our ownership projections here as well. So coming in about half owned from where Lynn is at 27%, sitting at 15%. We do have double A's. I try not to go too crazy with what the grade is coming out for him, but it looks like some of the guys back there, he's grading out decently well, maybe a little bit better than I would expect. But another kind of like feast or famine spot too, similar to the Twins where, yeah, they can K, but for the most part, Chicago's not a team you want to be picking on too often.
Yeah, creating runs better, 15% better than the average so far this year against righties. 22.3% strikeout rate against righties is sixth best in the league. Mm-hmm. The power is concerning. Only a 137 ISO against right-handed pitching, which for Chicago is strange. You wouldn't expect that with all those power bats. But they're definitely creating runs still. So I would be a little bit concerned about him here. But that's really interesting that he's rating out like that for the boss. That's a spot I might take a bigger look at because it is a kid I do like.
Yeah, that kind of triggered me for a second. Sometimes when you're going through the 9 gamers at 6 a.m. out here on the West Coast, you miss some stuff. That was something that kind of stuck out to me. So if you want to take a look a little further into that, and we can circle back to it, but just thought that was very curious because he was actually grading out much better than what I was expecting him to. Going through these lineups though, you've got with the White Sox, or sorry, with the Indians, you've got Jose Ramirez. That somebody that you could always target. I think he makes a pretty good one-off. I don't know how much I'm looking to be picking on Lance Lynn. Some people I was talking to a little bit this morning in my Slack chat, we were going back and forth. They're like, oh, I have issues for pitch count for Lance Lynn coming off of the IL. And it's like, well, he was pitching like upper 90s to 111 pitches in his second outing. So, I mean, if there's anybody you're going to have pitch concerns about, I'm not going to have them about Lance Lynn. Like maybe he goes out there and just doesn't look good, but very, very doubtful that they would be rushing him back. I feel pretty good about Lance Lynn today, still targeting against this Cleveland team. What say you?
Yeah, they're prize free agent. They're not going to put him back on the mound if they're concerned at all about anything. And like I said, he's one of those guys who will literally fight with the manager and try and stay in the game when they go to get him. So if there's an innings cap, maybe it means he goes 7 instead of a complete game. But it's Lance Lynn. I expect Lance Lynn to give us at least the 6 innings we need for the quality start. So whether he performs or not is a different story. But assuming he's performing, I expect 6 innings, no doubt about it.
Yeah, right there with you. I think Yasmani Grandal on the other side of that, the White Sox makes for a good contrarian spend up. I always like targeting, like in tournaments specifically, if you can get some expensive catchers, whether that's Sal Perez against Shoemaker, whether that's Mitch Garver, who actually might be garnering a little bit of ownership. Specifically, Gary Sanchez is basically the chalk at that upper end of the position. Yasmani Grandal may be a good one-off today.
Yeah, Grandal's been sneaky this year. He hasn't really been drawing a ton of ownership this year. And just over the last few seasons, one of the better hitting catchers in baseball. 2 years ago, 632 plate appearances, 28 home runs. You love to see that. He also had a 246, 380, 468 slash with a 222 ISO that year. He was down a little bit last year, and maybe some of that's carried over. Excuse me. But I love getting to Yasmani Grandal, particularly in a pretty productive lineup, probably hitting in front of a kid like Luis Robert. I think that's a spectacular combo if you want to grab a little 2-man from late in the lineup that won't be that owned. But I can get to a lot of these White Sox from top to bottom. I love Timmy Anderson. I think Adam Eaton's got a lot of utility that's underrated for what he does, filling in for Eloy Jimenez, has really helped with the team strikeout rate and changing those two up. Not to say that I don't want them to get Eloy back as soon as possible. Joan Moncada, Jose Abreu, there's just a lot of talent in that lineup. So I like getting to that White Sox team. And I wouldn't sleep on like Andrew Vaughn from late either.
And letting it be known, everybody, it's main slate projections that'll be going forward. We'll end up having those kind of be the ones that are free. So anything that's going to be for the main slate here this afternoon, that's going to be where you're going to be getting the free ownership for everything. So just wanted to clarify a little bit on some of that stuff, but we're going to give you as much free stuff as we can here in front of the paywall here at the moment, because we're feeling very generous this morning. Terry's a good guy. I'm a decent enough guy who likes to be helpful, but Terry's very, very helpful with things. So he wants to give you all the ownership in the entire world is kind of what I heard. Going along to anybody else that really sticks out to you, bat side from either side of it. I want to let it be known. Sorry to bring up weather pretty much at the end of every one of these breakdowns, but I'm seeing 25 miles an hour sustained up to 30-mile-an-hour gusts blowing across the field to left here at the moment. That kind of makes it interesting. I was trying to figure out a little bit. Lance Lynn up against this Cleveland offense, right around a 3.8 implied total for the Indians. Another spot where if you can get a hold of a couple and just get it blown out to left a little bit, it could get really wonky for this game too. Makes another good stack situation. If that wind moves a little bit out to the left field pole, it could be another great hitting environment, 70 degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty interesting for some of those big righty bats on the White Sox here. Or, Joan Moncada is a switch hitter. Jose Abreu is a righty. Luis Robert is a righty. Yasmani Grandal is a switch hitter. They got a lot of bats from that side of the plate that can target that. So that is a significant amount of wind. If it shifts, like you said, a little bit from directly toward the left field seats to out toward the pole, that could be dangerous for a kid like Tristan McKenzie here. So I think that's interesting. And then just on the other side, I don't want to leave the Indians out completely, because if we do get that weird instance where Lance Lynn comes out after, say, 4 innings, they're going to get into this bullpen. I think that could get interesting. And there's some bats on Cleveland that I like. I think, top end of the lineup is pretty much where you want to live. Nobody's really going to be there. So it's fairly obvious from, you can give or take on Cesar Hernandez, but Jordan Luplow's got power. Jose Ramirez got power. Eddie Rosario has power. Franmil Reyes has power. Even Josh Naylor right there has power. And you can shift those guys around and mix and match them in small stacks. Might be best for like a 3-man if you're, betting against Lance Lynn. I don't know that I want to take a full stack, run 5 guys against him on DK. It's a little tricky, but The middle of the order, too, Jose Ramirez and Eddie Rosario look like they're getting fairly significant ownership on the FanDuel slate, which is a little odd compared to everybody else on the team.
Not sure. Definitely agreed with that too. We are just a little bit past the halfway point. We're 4 games in. We're going to make up a little bit of time here. We can get it flying. I assure you all. Baltimore and Oakland. Jesus Luzardo. He's the prodigy. He is the guy. I'm not sure some of his underlying metrics. I'm very curious about, but obviously 5.4 ERA, 1.52 WHIP. Those aren't very impressive. Matt Harvey just kind of living on a prayer lately, throwing in the mid 80s pitches, ended up having a great outing against the Yankees last time out. Really no idea how he's doing it, but up to 7K, which is fascinating.
Somebody alert Frank Miller. The Dark Knight has returned. It is
so good.
I don't know, man. It's I badmouthed him like crazy the other day when he was going up against my Yanks, and he came out and he's throwing 96 miles an hour.
I would have done it too, but I was on an NBA show, I'm sure. So thanks for taking the bullet for all of us.
You got it. You're welcome. That said, I'm not going to him here. I don't think even at 6,600 on FanDuel, 7,000 if you wanted to take a few shares. Do I even want to say this? I don't. I'm not going to say it.
Do it.
You know what to do. If you want to do it. But that's not for me. I'm not going to recommend that anybody take shares, even at 7,000 of Matt Harvey as an SP2. I just don't like it. I think the spot is there. The A's are just blasting through the top of my home run model. It's come down relatively to where Harvey was like a week ago because of that good start. Like some of that gets baked in here. So it's come down a little bit, but we've still got the entire A's team well over 10 in my home run model. 10 is like the magic number where you transition from having a normal chance to hit a home run to a good chance. So with that, I just cannot advise people to go to Matt Harvey here. Jesus Luzardo on the other side, I believe in a little bit more. I think there's just a super high-end prospect here. Has not put it all together yet completely, but the 26.1% strikeout rate so far this year is nice. 9.0% walks need to come down, to your point on the 1.52 whip. But the xFIP's 404. That's right there where you want it to be. It'll come down probably as he develops, as he improves. I think the price is right. 8,500 on DK is fair. 87 on FanDuel. You can go to him against the Orioles here. Not a lot of threats in that Orioles lineup right now. Trey Mancini certainly from the right side of the plate. Michael Franco's got some pop. Mountcastle is a good player still developing. Austin Hayes, similar story from the right side of the plate. So he's got a lot of righties to deal with, but I think he's a talented enough kid to get through this, and I'm getting a nice projection on him.
So, I mean, right now he's kind of coming in 5th in terms of ownership here on the early slate over on DraftKings. Would you kind of, in terms of like Corbin, who's gaining the most ownership, Taillon, Lance Lynn, Castillo, where do you kind of put Luzardo in terms of your priorities on this slate?
So it's a little tricky to break that down because I've got all the pitchers from the broken up FanDuel slates all kind of together. But
all right, let me slip over to that 6-game run FanDuel here too. Well, because I was going to say you're the blue site guy. That's my apologies. I understand that, but I'm pretty sure like Jesus Luzardo, I have more interest in going to him and trying to take tournament shots on a guy like him sitting at 8,500 than playing like Taillon and Corbin at even more chalky ownership there. I think I'll take my shots. I mean, 3.3 implied total playing in Oakland. Luzardo, the pedigree that he has, man, I feel like I kind of want to take a couple of those shots in tournaments.
Yeah, so I think I'm parsing the tournament the right way here in terms of which games are on which site. Mm-hmm. I think, Luzardo would be my preferred option over Corbin and Taillon, even though we're paying a little bit more for him, 8,500 on DK as compared to 6,477. I just trust Luzardo more than those two at this point, just with the way Corbin's been pitching right now. I talked about it before. Corbin is by far the best track record guy out of that group. He's been an ace caliber pitcher in his career. It's just not there right now. His stuff has kind of abandoned him. And then looking through some of the other options on that slate, I think I like Luzardo at lower ownership and a lower price than, say, Danny Duffy going up against the tough Twins lineup. That's a good option on that slate.
Love it.
But yeah, he would be in there. 7,400 is a very interesting price for Luis Castillo, though. He's on that slate, right?
Yes, he is. And we'll get across to that. I was going to say, we got him. We've got Flaherty. I know you're excited to talk about Jack Flaherty a little bit. So let's keep, let's just cover any bats that you really want, that really stick out to you. You talked about Mancini maybe being a guy you can play from the Baltimore side. Oakland up to around 4.7 implied team total. Laureano Canna's been hitting very, very well there. Matt Chapman, you can always be taking, garnering quite a bit of ownership.
Yeah, they're going to be really popular, and it makes sense. Everybody knows that we're targeting Matt Harvey, so that'll probably be even more reason that Matt Harvey's going to come out and put up a 50-point start against this year. But yeah, it's all about these Oakland bats for me. Matt Olson, the big bat in the middle from the left side of the plate, has a monster home run total. If I was writing up this one for my article, he would probably be my home run pick here. 3,800 on FanDuel. You can get to that all day long. 49 under 5K for that player in that spot on DK. You can definitely get to that. I think Mitch Moreland's going a little under-recognized for 3,200. Only 11.4% ownership on DK compared to Olson's 21 from 2 spots later in the lineup. Another lefty in a great home run spot. That's kind of interesting to me. I can get to Chapman at reasonable ownership. I prefer the ownership the way it's broken down for them for sure on that DK slate, but that's because we've got well, no, actually on the FanDuel slate, we've got more games to choose from because it's a 6-gamer. I don't know. I'm getting lost in the thread there.
I was going to say, I definitely tweeted out ahead of time. I was like, it is a 6-game, 3-game. We have 48 slates going on FanDuel. DraftKings, I was just kind of doing it for ease of enjoyment. 7-gamer on the early side makes it a little bit easier. But let's jump across to probably a talking point that I really want to hear your perspective on, because Luis Castillo coming in very, very popular, and Luis Castillo been very, very bad so far this year. 7 Ks per 9, decent enough, but I mean, that's not the kind of Castillo numbers you're looking at. Really what it comes down to, xFIP 4.05 over here on the season through 5 starts, just has been really, really bad. ERA way over 5. Talk to me about what's going on with Luis Castillo this year.
Yeah, I haven't nailed down exactly what it is. It'll be interesting. Let me pull them up in StatCast and see if I can bullseye something that might be different about the pitch mix. I didn't get a chance to give it a good look there, and I went to the wrong website here. So let me, but yeah, the strikeouts are way down, which is concerning. Is a guy who kind of has been one of the elite pitchers in the game over the last 2 years. 30% strikeout rate, 30.5% strikeout rate in 70 innings last year with a 2.82 xFIP and a 1.23 WHIP. 28.9% strikeouts the year before in a 190 inning sample. Was walking too many guys that year, 10.1% walks, but he got away with it. He had only a 1.14 WHIP and a 3.70 xFIP that year. The walks are down at 6.3%, which makes it really concerning that the WHIP is so far up, and the strikeouts are down. I'm starting to suspect, just seeing that though, and I'm going to jump to Fangraphs real quick here and check his BABIP. He might just be getting BABIP to death. 346 BABIP against right now. That's part of the problem. Yeah. Although that was 329 last year, and he was pretty spectacular last year. So it's not the whole problem. Let me see if
I mean, it's such a string. I mean, induced 12 ground balls against St. Louis last time out, still gave up 2 homers, 4 earned runs. Just not really. The K's haven't been there in either matchup. St. Louis, Arizona, San Francisco did get up to 98 pitches there. Just super chalky pitcher today against the Cubs, which can get really, really scary in that ballpark real quick as well. I just don't really know what to make of him. I think playing both sides of it feels about like the safest way that you can go, because taking an aggressive stand on Luis Castillo just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that's concerning. I just got lost in checking his pitch mix here. It looks like he's throwing his changeup a lot more. He took his changeup from 30% usage to 40% usage. It's his most frequently used pitch. And it was his most frequently used pitch because he's got a 4-seamer and sinker mix. So if we're calling that one fastball, then that's his most used pitch. But if we're calling that one fastball this year, that ties his changeup usage basically. So that's interesting. It looks like the changeup spin rate improved. He's getting a lot less put away on it and a lot fewer and a lot lower whiff rate on it though.
Yeah,
the whiff rate dropped from 40.1 to 29.4. So that's really concerning. The changeup doesn't seem to be working, and he's using it more. So that would probably be the difference. And if you think about, what the nature of that pitch is, if that pitch isn't working, coming in slower, sitting a little flat, that makes a lot of sense that guys are being able to drive the ball, hit for base hits, and increase that BABIP against him. So all those things are kind of working together against him. I do still believe in the pitcher, and I believe in that price tag for the pitcher, though. That's the real story here. 7,400 is just for the pedigree. Is just too cheap. 6,700 for the pedigree is too cheap. Now 6,700 with nearly 30% ownership with enough pitchers to choose from on that slate, that's maybe a warning sign. That's a tricky spot on that FanDuel slate.
So on FanDuel, you're not necessarily trying to get bulk ownership. You're not trying to get up to kind of like meet the field there whatsoever at 6,700. Like I haven't played enough around with the salaries there on FanDuel, but is there like any, like if you're going to be pairing Luis Castillo with some bats, like what direction would you be going with that?
For sure, I'd be looking to spend up. I haven't crunched anything for that slate yet, so I'm not sure exactly where it would go. But we've got a few, talented offenses to spend on that slate, so I'm sure I wouldn't have too much trouble spending the money. Although that has been an issue at FanDuel in general. I've been entering a lot of lineups with like $2,000 left on the table because it's top end stack, good pitcher that I want, and just no way to spend my money. But I think on this slate there are probably going to be enough ways to do it. Just looking at how he ranks out, he still projects well for me because there's enough of previous year in there. I like Jack Flaherty on that FanDuel slate a lot more, even though we're paying not double, but at least a third again on top. Tricky spot, man. This is going to be a do or die inflection point for that slate for sure. I'll have some, but I'll probably undercut the field even at a price that I really like. Cubs are also presenting a tough matchup so far this year, which is another part of the story we haven't really touched on here. They are. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I was on the Cincinnati one. Cubbies are striking out a decent amount. Cubbies are fourth worst in the league, 26.9% strikeout rate against righties, and 12% below average in creating runs against righties so far this year. So actually, it is a little bit of a plus matchup there.
So if you're
probably be under the field.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Kind of looking that direction. Also, Jason Bay, go ahead and head out. Have a great day. I hope you enjoy your afternoon. We have a lot to get to. We have a lot of baseball to talk, so we're flying through it as fast as we possibly can. So have a great afternoon. Making our way across. No, I just have to give him a shout out. Say hi to him there. Looking at this Cubs lineup, I'm kind of figuring out who I really want to be targeting. Tony Wolters down there as a catcher, 2,200. If you're looking to punt there, gives you a little bit of a salary relief. Lefty in a great ballpark, letting that be known. And Luis Castillo hasn't necessarily been fantastic. I think the Cubs make a great stack. I think Cincinnati makes a great stack going against Zach Davies, who we haven't even really talked about too much. Nothing about Zach Davies has ever impressed me. Is that kind of what you feel as well?
100%. I think that's all we needed to say about Zach Davies. I can go back to those Cincinnati bats that I was accidentally looking at a minute ago and talk about that. They are the league leaders against right-handed pitching so far this year with a 212 ISO. They are the second best team in the league, or third best in terms of creating runs, 15% better than average. They have the tied for the league with 33 home runs against right-handed pitching so far this year. I think that's a high-end lineup. I'm going to be getting a lot of this lineup all year long. Really like it. They've got Naquin leading off this today. Lefty back going up against Zach Davies off the top. Not getting any attention on DK for the 4,500 price tag. People just aren't used to paying that for Tyler Naquin now. Post-hype prospects kind of coming into his own so far this year in Cincinnati. Getting into Nick Castellanos, Joey Votto, Mike Moustakas, Eugenio Suarez, Nick Senzel. A lot to love in that lineup. Unfortunately, no Jesse Winker today, who is like my hero of the early part of the season. Love the way that kid hits the ball from the left side of the plate. I would love to have him here against Zach Davies, but I think Naquin's giving us a pretty similar option off the top here today. So definitely going to have a lot of that Reds lineup. The ownership is tough on FanDuel, though. Everybody in the heart of the order over 20% owned. You can get Senzel in there for only 15. You can get Naquin at 7, help offset some of it, but difficult to get different with them today on the FanDuel slate.
All right. So we got 3 games. We got 12 minutes, but we can do this. We can definitely do this. You can also check out Awesemo Plus. We have all the tools, every DFS sport out there. Weekly pass right now going for $29.95. That includes access to all of the premium content and tools at Awesemo, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, which I talked about a little bit, lineup builder, and so much more. We had game plan videos. Terry had an awesome game plan video yesterday where he was going through all the Excel spreadsheets, throwing everything together. I mean, the guy is an absolute ridiculous haven of knowledge when it comes to MLB and putting all the tools together. And if you want to just check out MLB right now, it's only $15.95 for the weekly package. So if this is your sport and this is what you want to be looking at, that's kind of a nice direction that you can go to. So stop guessing, start winning, and join Awesemo Plus today. Let's get ourselves going across. We're going to fly. I'm going to leave a lot of this up to you here because we got those 2 extra games we added on from the FanDuel slate. But the last piece of the DraftKings slate, Houston, Tampa Bay, Urquidy pitching for Houston on one side, and then you've got Josh Fleming on the other. Right now, Josh Fleming's been really, really good in limited pitch counts, got up to 65, 71 pitches. He did have 84 pitches that first time out. I will let that be known, but a very, very potent Houston offense. It's starting to get healthier, starting to get all their guys back. And then Urquidy, somebody that has very strong reverse splits, partially due to that changeup that he throws a bunch. That was kind of what made him famous in 2019, coming off the World Series run, where he was really, really good after pitching like crap in AAA. But Urquidy, definitely a prospect that that's coming up, looking pretty darn good, but not really getting like the ownership I was anticipating for a guy who's up at 9,500. It's kind of a misprice. Talk to me about those guys.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a misprice for who he's been so far. I think maybe we'll see him be that pitcher in the future, but I think 95 is a lot of freight to play. I like it a lot better at 7,400 on the FanDuel slate. Getting a nice projection on the kid, not getting a ton of ownership there. I like throwing him up against this Tampa lineup. There's enough strikeout upside here for him. He hasn't been an elite strikeout pitcher by any means so far in his major league career. 14.7% 29 innings last year, 19.5 this year in 27 innings. 2 years ago, he was at 24% over 41 innings. If he's near that guy, I think there's a lot of strikeouts on the table for him here, and just a pretty good spot. So it's just unfortunate that he's 9,500. That's a lot to pay for him on a DK slate where we do have other options. But if you want to offset some ownership, that's probably a way to do it in what I think is a good pitcher and a good matchup. On the other side, I would be really worried about Fleming in this spot. The Astros are spectacular against left-handed pitching. So far this year, 18.2% strikeout rate is third best in the league. Creating runs 19% better than average against lefty pitching. Only a 10 home runs so far, only a 143 ISO, but everybody's struggling to hit for power against lefties for the most part. Going back in a larger sample to the start of 2019, they are best in baseball, 17.8% strikeout rate. Best in baseball with a 120 WRC plus as a team. 205 ISO is, I believe, fourth best in baseball in the split against lefties. So they're just an excellent offense against lefties. We don't know how many pitches we're getting out of Fleming here. I suspect he could get into trouble early and not see a pretty lengthy start here, get into that Tampa bullpen. I would definitely prefer the Astros bat side of this one instead of Fleming.
Yeah, so Alvarez kind of getting the most ownership over on FanDuel as I'm looking over there at some of those pieces, talking about the blue side a little bit. Brandon Lau from the Tampa Bay side also getting near 20% ownership on those. Both sides of this kind of getting quite a bit of ownership, not the greatest ballpark. We know that. Two pitchers that should generally be better than what you're looking at for the rest of this 6-gamer or 7 total games over on DraftKings. But on FanDuel specifically, what bats are you really looking at targeting for that afternoon slate?
I love Yordan Alvarez on any slate. I'll get to that kid all day long. He is one of the best bats in baseball. He hits lefties spectacularly well, so I do not worry at all about the lefty with him. So definitely get to him. That does not apply the same way to Kyle Tucker. Kyle struggles a little bit against lefties. Brantley is a good hitter against lefties, but doesn't have as much pop against lefties. But there's so many righty bats in there, from Jose Altuve up top. Alex Bregman is obvious. Yuli Gurriel is somebody who people tend to skip over and should not, particularly righty bat against the lefty here. Carlos Correa, similar story. So there's not a ton of ownership on those Astros, in a very good spot here. I definitely can roster a lot of Astro stacks. On the FanDuel slate, that's pretty different. There's some aggressive ownership in the middle of the lineup on Bregman and Alvarez, but you get offset ownership again. People are leaving out Yuli Gurriel. He's under 1% owned. Carlos Correa is 6% owned on the FanDuel slate. So there's a lot of ways to string that lineup together and not really sweat the ownership too much over there. So I love the Astros spot here. Tampa on the other side of things, it's interesting. We get a lot of ownership going to the lefties. You mentioned the reverse splits. So that's kind of interesting there. I think I would get to some Rendero Serena. I would probably take one-offs from Tampa more than I would stack them here against Urquidy. I think I'll have enough Urquidy that I don't want to do that just given the FanDuel price. But as one-offs, taking some Austin Meadows as a lefty is fine. Taking some Lowy as a lefty is fine. But Margot's appealing there. Rosarena's a little appealing there. So I can take some shares of the Rays bats, but I prefer the Urquidy side of that one.
Yeah, love it. Let's keep it moving. We got 7 minutes. We got two very important pitchers that we need to take a look at in the next 2 games. So we'll move ourselves along. We have, to finish it out, New York Mets at the Phillies. On one side of it here, you've got Zach Wheeler, going to be a decently enough popular piece on that FanDuel slate. And then Taijuan Walker on the other side of it, somebody that we've been familiar with here for a while, pitched fantastic against Washington in 7 innings, got the quality start, looked pretty decent there. But what's kind of your interest level in Zach Wheeler for that FanDuel slate?
Yeah, I got a nice little projection on Wheeler. It's just the price is 9,300 is maybe appropriate, I think, for Zach Wheeler. That's probably around where we'll see him priced through most of the year. I think we've got better options on the slate in terms of just the pricing and where the ownership's going to be. 9,300 fair price, 15% ownership, fair ownership for the projection I get for him. So I don't know how much I'll end up with, but I think he's a good pitcher going up against a struggling Mets offense so far this year. We saw them get kind of hurt me last night in having so much of them. They are 114 team ISO against righties so far this season, 88 WRC plus, 12% below average. Only hit 11 home runs against righties. This is a team we expected to have a lot of power. That is worst in the league so far against right-handed pitching. 24% strikeout rate puts them right in the middle of the league in terms of team offense. But it's just probably a good spot for a pitcher who tends to keep the ball in the park, tends to keep the ball on the ground. So he's taking the top off the Mets power indicators in my home run model here. I do get reasonable just point projections for them, but I don't get a lot of power upside. I think Wheeler could have a good start. Even if it's not a good DFS start, I think he's going to have a productive, good start here. And I would not be going to too much Mets stacks. Philly on the other side of things, Taijuan Walker, 26.4% strikeout rate as a reclamation project this year, 16.1% walk rate, 4.1 xFIP, 1.24 whip. He's fine. I just think 8,400. I'm not really that interested going up against what I think is a pretty decent Phillies lineup, despite the strikeouts. Phillies so far this season, 26.3% strikeout rate against righties, is 8th worst in baseball. 132 team ISO is creating runs 14% worse than average. I think there's a lot of happenstance kind of baked into that. I know it's kind of unfair to say that about one team and not all these others, but I just think there's so much upside in this Phillies offense and the way that they're constructed. But we've got all those question marks, so we need the final lineup. We had a bunch of guys. We had 4 guys questionable through the heart of the order, like we were talking about before the show. So that makes a big, big difference. If we don't have Bryce Harper there, JT Realmuto, Didi Gregorius, or Gene Segura in there, it's a very different lineup.
I hope that as a basketball coming from the basketball streets, I would love to have some late news where you get all of those bats under-owned in the heart of the Phillies lineup. I will also let it be known as I'm looking at this FanDuel slate, Francisco Lindor is 3,100 over on FanDuel. That's just very, very jarring to be looking at. I know he's been really, really bad, but I think that's something I'm still going to have some pieces of.
Yeah, that's a bananas price for Frankie Lindor, and they've been doing that all over the place this year. Gleyber Torres has been in like the 25s. I know he's been struggling as well, but these are guys that are just not that type of a hitter. But yeah, Frankie Lindor out to a .054 ISO so far this season with a 189, 299, 243 slash. Ouch.
Oh my God.
Oh, those Mets, man, they are snake bit with these guys. But
he's enjoying the benefits of being a zillionaire. Like it's hard to blame him at this point in time. If I got paid $500 million, I think I would probably take my time at the beginning of a season too. I can't really blame him.
Yeah, exactly. When the weather warms up in New York, he'll be out there, and I think he'll turn it around. But yeah, cold month, he took it off, no problems.
Yeah, just take a nap. Just make sure you don't get hurt in that first month for sure. All right, let's bring it home. So Jack Flaherty, your guy that you talked about, just talk to me about Jack Flaherty against Pittsburgh, a team that we're kind of been targeting all year.
Yeah, I think Flaherty is one of the top end pitching options on the day. My highest projected pitcher on the day, 16.8% ownership on the FanDuel slate. I think that's fine. You're only paying $10K for him in what I think is a pretty good matchup against the pretty weak Pittsburgh Pirates here. They're good at not striking out. That is the one discernible thing they do well. 21.1% strikeout rate is second best in baseball this year against right-handed pitching. So that's been their story over the last couple of seasons. They avoid the strikeouts, but they don't hit for a lot of power. 141 team ISO, creating runs 4% worse than average in the leagues so far in the season against righties. 16 home runs puts them a little below average so far on the season. So there's just not a lot of threat here. I don't see them really stringing together a ton of offense against a guy that I think is a very good pitcher. His strikeouts are down 23.9% so far this year. 4.05 xFIP is fine. 0.95 whip is an improvement over where he was last year, back toward where he was the year before. He was a 29.9% strikeout pitcher in 2019, 28.8% in 2020. I expect the strikeouts to come up. Maybe this isn't the spot tonight where we see an immense strikeout game from him, but I think there's enough upside here that he's my favorite pitcher on the slate. I'm not going to be rostering Pirates against him, except for maybe a couple just hedge stacks, but it won't be very many. They're not getting any kind of ownership there. I think going the other way with some of the Cardinals bats coming back against the struggling Trevor Cahill is maybe an interesting spot. The xFIP is okay, 3.23, but the whip is 1.42, putting too many guys on base. 22.9% strikeout rate, down from the 29% we saw from him last year, up from the 17.8% he was at in 2019. So maybe he's improved, rounding back toward Trevor Cahill, but I think there's a lot of reason to throw some of these Cards power bats against him here. So I think I would be more inclined to do that. And there are ways to dance in and out of the ownership. Nolan Arenado, only 9.3% ownership projection. Paul Goldschmidt, only 7%. I like those numbers.
I might have to take 1 or 2 shots on Trevor Cahill. I guess he did induce a bunch of ground balls last time out. It looks like 11 ground ball outs up against the Twins. He looked really, really good in that outing. But otherwise, as you said, absolutely horrific. So I think I might, when I say have a share or two, I just don't want to win something on FanDuel with Trevor Cahill and talk about how much I hated him. Any final thoughts for this slate on either side of it, DraftKings or FanDuel?
Which slate? We've got so many.
We've got 48 of them, really, is what it kind of comes down to. So Jack Flaherty, I think, was kind of the guy who stood out for you on that 6-gamer. This early slate, the locks here in 5 minutes. Who's your ride or die pitcher on FanDuel?
Geez, that's a tricky one. I don't like any of them. That's the problem. That was the issue with that slate. It's probably Danny Duffy. He's on that slate, right? I think he's the best pitcher, but he's in the worst spot. Pat Corbin, I don't trust, but I get a better projection on, so I would go that way. And then the guy who's actually projecting the best for me out of that group that I didn't want to say earlier was Matt Shoemaker.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I'm just not playing that slate, really, is the answer.
Yeah, what a fun slate. I'm just fading the Yankees here in the front end of it here. I think that's kind of the way you build on a show. You just basically fade the first 2 games and pray to God that everybody goes off in the afternoon. But that's going to do it for us here today. Terry, great job breaking everything down. You're a blast. I had a blast as well. Always fun to join the MLB streets. We got a lot of shows coming up here on the back end of the day. Right after us now, we've got the NASCAR strategy show with Jason and Phil. We've got the daily game plan. That's going to be going on with Terry here this afternoon, so stick around for that. MLB Deeper Dive for the afternoon. That's Greg and Gundacker, if you will. And then Jason Floyd and Pete Rogers, breaking down the UFC live before lock. And of course, the Deeper Dive, my guys Spags and Ryan, breaking everything down for you there up until 8. And then Greg doing the live before lock for NBA. He's Terry. I'm Eric. Best of luck, gamers.
Got to figure out what I'm going to talk about on that game plan show.